Blog Talk Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have a problem. I would like to introduce Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Investigations Team.
And welcome to another night of Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Radio. Tonight, we will be doing yet another interview, and we will be interviewing paranormal researcher and enthusiast Bill Tracer about the Reptoids, and which are some reptilian aliens not known about, except Bill is very well versed on this subject, and we thought he would be the best to discuss this with. And we're really looking forward to talking to him tonight.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good show tonight. I know the last show we did with Bill was actually our most popular show we've ever had in history on the show, which is pretty outstanding, counting on we've had, I don't know, how many interviews would you say that we've done here, Nick?
Probably about 20, between 15 and 20, I'd say. We've done quite a few.
Exactly. Yeah, we're just waiting for Bill to call in here. He should be calling in any second. So how's everyone doing?
Yeah.
Whoops, and Bill?
Yes.
Oh, hi there, Bill.
I'm here.
Yeah, Nick, you wanna lead the way for today's show, Nick?
Sure. Yeah, hi, Bill.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we'll begin the show off by just asking you maybe a little bit about your background and what got you into the paranormal, and how do you get all this research that you just seem to pile up whenever we talk to you? It's just, we'll start off with that.
Okay. Well, I guess really as far back as I can remember, I've always kind of had an interest in the unusual, the unexplained, the things that people just can't quite pinpoint what it really is. And so even as a very young person, I did a lot of research or reading, a lot of reading of stuff like I've forgotten the guy's name now. Of course, I've read some of Eric Van Donigen's material way back with his original, the Chariots of the Gods, and a lot of other researchers, since that time. And that is primarily, I guess, a lot of the source of my information is from reading a lot. Throughout my teen years, I was spending a lot of time doing that, and then of course, anytime documentaries of that sort come on television, I tend to watch those, and then I think there's maybe a part of it also is kind of an interest, a generalist interest. That is, an interest in a wide range of data. Because I think that when you look at a wide range of data and begin to kind of synchronize or syncretize, as I think, that data, then you can begin to see patterns that if most people are just kind of focused on a certain area and they just learn that area, then they're not going to be able to make those leaps, draw conclusions, or even tentative conclusions at least, unless they have that wider span of looking around the world in that with that wider generalist view, and by having that view, then you like I say, you begin to see some things, patterns that are behind the scenes, as it were.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Well, yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm definitely reading what you're saying. Well, second question. A lot of people probably listening don't know what a reptoid may even be. Bill, could you perhaps give just a brief description of what a reptoid is, what it looks like, etc.?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of different views about that, in fact. And when you look out there at the Internet, of course, has now become a great source of information, but also it's a source of disinformation. So one has to be careful about, what you look at. But primary description, however, seems to be kind of a basically humanoid type figure, but with reptilian characteristics like the scaly skin, the eyes like we're used to seeing on reptiles, where you got that little vertical pupil, and like I say, also some of the various testimonies even include just details like the feet, the details of what their feet are like, which seem to include a rather large claw on what we would call the large toe. Rather similar, if you look back and if you look in some of these paleontology books, and you look at pictures of certain dinosaurs, the raptor-type dinosaurs had very, very large claws on their large toes, and it's thought that since they were a predatory creature, that it was thought that they very probably used that to, when they would attack their prey, to literally leap on their prey and use that large claw to basically do something like slit the throat of their prey. So some people have testified seeing that sort of claw on these reptoids of today, and which leads some to think that they might actually be descendant of dinosaurs or that type of dinosaur. But that's just a theory at this point. We can't really be certain if that's the case. But it is a characteristic they seem to share in common with these dinosaurs. That's the basic description. I guess. Oh, go ahead.
So would you say that these reptoids are they alien-like, or would you say that they are earthbound-like, earthly creatures?
There's different theories on that. Some people believe that they are from Earth originally. Some believe that they do come from elsewhere. Really, there's kind of a 3 or 4-part question there with that. Are they extraterrestrial? Are they extra-dimensional? Are they descendant of dinosaurs, having lived in kind of subterranean environments for all these millions of years? Since when we thought the dinosaurs became extinct 65 million years ago, did these guys go underground, that is to say their ancestors a long time ago went underground, and these would be their descendants. That's one of the possibilities. And some people say it's kind of all of the above, meaning that while they may have originated here, some of them have left the Earth a long time ago, maybe even millions of years ago, and are now coming back. So in a way, that's kind of both Earth origin and extraterrestrial, in that they've been away from, if they've really been away for millions of years, then they've evolved quite differently in an alien environment or environments, and are now returning. So they would, upon returning, they would certainly appear to be of extraterrestrial origin rather than being from here originally. But so, it's kind of a gray area as to what the case might really be. There's a lot more data that has to be gathered before we can really draw a conclusion. That's why I tend to draw tentative conclusions that can always be changed based on, you get new evidence, new data. That data has to be factored in, and then you can may well draw a new conclusion, or at least modified conclusion. But at this point, I would say, at this point, I'd say it could be either or both.
Well, I was going to say we could further go into a specific theory. I think on the last program we had you on, we discussed the hollow Earth theory, and maybe we said maybe some raptors or some other type of dinosaur had gone into these deep caverns and had evolved a certain way where they became somewhat hominid. Could you elaborate a little further on that?
Sure. Actually, it's not that much of a stretch for certain dinosaurs to become hominid, as you say. When you look at many of them were indeed already bipedal. They had a tail. In fact, the vast majority of them had tails, but they stood on two legs and they had the two arms on each. Just like we do. Same kind of symmetry that we have, in terms of the facial characteristics and traits. So that would kind of actually, when you look at the concept of evolution, if an alien species evolved on an entirely different planet, one wouldn't really expect them to necessarily have the same shape and form as we do. So when you have a being that does have that basic shape and form as we do, then you have to wonder, well, are they from here, or is it just a case of convergent evolution? That meaning something evolving in a different place but happens to evolve down a similar path so that they come out looking kind of similar by coincidence, not a real connection. That's certainly a possibility too. We see that happening here on Earth. There's many examples of convergent evolution here on Earth. Look at the continent of Australia, and you can find a lot of examples of creatures there that there's a kind of I forget what it's called, but it's a kind of a marsupial creature that looks very much like a cat. It looks very feline, but it's not even related to cats at all. It just happened to evolve to this form to where it looks very much like the felines of from somewhere else. So that kind of convergent evolution definitely occurs here on the Earth, so we can expect it to occur throughout the universe as well, if indeed life evolves elsewhere, and I tend to think it does. But that's still something that people have to debate, because we haven't got the official direct contact with anyone out there yet. But I think it's highly probable that we're going to find cases of convergent evolution of that sort out there on other planets.
Well, what's my next question? I think I'm just going to digress for a second away from reptoids and go on to other planets, life on other planets. I think you wrote us on our profile, and you said that you're working on a publication talking about, it slips my mind right now, the something paradox.
Yeah, the Fermi paradox. Enrique Fermi was a physicist back in the 1950s. He was the definitive nuclear physicist who actually invented the nuclear power plants, not the design of what they have now in nuclear power plants. He didn't work on the bomb, but he worked on the making nuclear energy available to people. So it was Fermi who actually we can credit as being the primary scientist on that project, working at Los Alamos at the labs there. And in 1950, he and some of his other physicist friends were having lunch, and just during a lunchtime conversation, they were talking about the idea or the possibility of extraterrestrial life elsewhere in the universe. And he asked the simple question, well, where are they then? You know, based on the size of the universe as we know it, based on the age of the universe as we understand it nowadays, the Earth in the solar system is a relatively young star system compared to the rest of the universe. They think the universe is about 14 billion years old, while our solar system is only about 4.5 billion. So we've been around a lot less time than the rest of the universe. So then, presumably then life should have evolved elsewhere on other planets, and some of those would have been a lot longer ago than now. So they would have had plenty of time to spread, even at sublight speeds. Extraterrestrials should have had plenty of time to spread throughout it and, in fact, colonize the entire galaxy a long time ago, according to the simple numbers of how it all stacks up. So that was why Fermi asked that question then. Well, then where are they? If that's the case, if they do exist, why don't we know them? Why aren't they here right now? Of course, some people say they are here right now, but that they are not here in a way that is open and public, but they're here in a covert sort of way. And that's one of the possible answers to Fermi's paradox, is that they've chosen to be covert, those that have come here, and maybe they have some agenda that we just simply don't know about, where they don't want to let it be publicly known that they're here. But so anyway, the project I'm working on is looking at what we call Fortean phenomenon, which is basically you guys' topic, in general. Charles Fort did a lot of research back in the early 1900s about anything the strange, the unexplained, the weird stuff that happens in life that we just don't know why it happened or how it happened or what it is. And he just compiled enormous lists of all of these strange happenings and case histories. And so nowadays, that's why people call Fortean, they named it after him, after Charles Fort, the idea of anything of the strange and unexplained, including UFO sightings, that's considered to be Fortean phenomenon. So the question is, does Fortean phenomenon answer Fermi's paradox? And that's an article that I am working on right now. I did an actual presentation at a convention, a local convention in March on that topic. Was on a panel, and we discussed that topic, and I had a little slide presentation that I showed everybody, and that was kind of nice. It was fun, and that kind of gave me that was the germ, I guess you might say, or the little inspiration I had to go from there and start writing this article that I'm working on right now. I am also working on an article about the Reptoids as well. In fact, I've been doing a lot of work on it today, but because I figured, well, what better time for me to work on it today? It'll be fresh in my mind before we have this discussion tonight. But when I get those published, I will definitely let you guys know. I've got a whole lot of articles currently published online that relate to the UFO phenomenon in general and talking about different ideas with this, that talk around the subject. None of them are directly on our topic tonight, in that sense of not talking about the Reptoids. Just something I'm working on that article now. But if I could provide a link to you guys.
Oh, yes.
It's this link is to a page, or to a group actually. I don't know if you're familiar with the website Gather.com. Gather is kind of similar to a lot of these social network sites like Facebook or MySpace, but Gather is much more kind of oriented toward people who do a lot of writing. So it's a more author-oriented kind of social network, and photographers and artists also. A lot of people put their images out there, the artwork. I've got a bunch of my artwork out there too. I do that too, and I've got a lot of UFO art that I've done. This article, or this group that I'm going to give you this link to, it actually is a group at Gather that's devoted to the subject of Fortean stuff. Fortean Enigmas is the name of the group. And the top article on the when you go to this link, you'll see at the top of the page there's a group of articles that's called Featured. And the top article in the Featured category is an article that I've written that actually has, basically it's a list of all the different stuff I've written on the subject and a list of a bunch of my artwork. People can go look at, just click on those links and go look at my art and go look at these articles and read them if they like. It's really up to them. I'm sending that. I just sent that to the chat room, that link, and you know, I would encourage any of the listeners if they'd like to join that group at Gather. The Fortean Enigmas group is a good group. There's a lot of people send information to it and pictures to it that relate to things of the strange, the unexplained, and it's always of interest to see what other people have found and are sharing. So it's a good place to share that kind of stuff.
Well, Bill, I have a question, actually.
All right.
Yes, we're getting some questions right now. On Reptoids #1, our first special that we had you on, you were talking about possible military confrontations with aliens that were reptilian or like the Reptoids. And specifically, people are asking if you know about an incident that happened in the 1960s in Dulce, New Mexico.
And where in New Mexico?
D-U-L-C-E.
D-U-L-C-E. No, I'm not specifically familiar with that, but I'll definitely do some research on that. D-U-L-C-E, New Mexico.
It's on Reptoids.com.
Yeah, I have looked at that site. Of course, you know, I haven't been through the whole thing, but there's definitely an indication that these reptoids don't have good intentions for humanity. If indeed they are descended of dinosaurs. And maybe it's true. Maybe most of them left, but are now coming back, and they found us here, having taken over what they perceive to be their world. That wouldn't bode well. You know, that I don't think they would necessarily like us. When you consider that possibility, one of the things I'm not meaning to change the subject, but one of the things I would like to mention. If you don't mind, one of the things that I've really been thinking about a lot is what I would call the weight of data. There's a lot of data from a lot of different sources about these reptoids, but how you weigh that data, you know, how much credence you give to a given piece of data, is going to really depend on certain factors. And I'm not really sure about this case in Dulce, New Mexico. Do you know, is that based on testimony of certain people or what?
Well, I'm looking at it right now. It's in the classic article section of Reptoids.com. It's what it is there was a guy that was doing UFO research, and he was speaking at some lectures, and I guess some guy stood up and had documentation that he worked at some secret military base in Dulce, New Mexico in the 60s. And I guess he was saying that there's some sort of a mutual military base where the military was talking to these reptoids, and I guess that there was some sort of a battle ended up taking place, or a fight of some sort, and a bunch of people ended up getting killed.
Wow. No, I'll definitely want to look into that. I'm at their site right now. Is there a specific link from the front page to go to get to that?
Yeah, on the front page, you click on the classic article section. It's on the top right.
I got it.
And then it's on the very bottom. It says the Dulce base, where it all began.
Oh.
And that's the article.
So this is.
I can see where these reptoids would be angry if they left the planet, or if they were in hiding and we ended up basically taking over their planet.
yeah, they wouldn't be happy about that. Although But now, let me just kind of backtrack a little bit here and talk about these, what I call the types of data, which is kind of the way that I weigh the different data that I when I look at any UFO and alien related topic, including the reptoids. Are you familiar with the work of Richard Dolan?
The name's familiar to me.
I'm sorry, what?
I said it's familiar to me.
He's written a couple of books, 2 out of 3. He's going to do a total of these 3 books on the topic of UFO history, and he's writing it basically from a historian's perspective. His first book dealt with the subject from 1947 up to I think 72 or 73, sometime in the early 70s, and then the second book goes from there, the early 70s to 1991. His third book will take it from 91 all the way to the present day, and he's still working on that third one right now. But I find his work really interesting. I've listened to him speak about a few things, at some different things, and he's a very good speaker. But anyway, he has divided the data into 3 categories. He says, but I think that the data could be divided into a 4th category as well. So I've kind of devised 4 categories as far as the types of looking at UFO data, and these progressively have less weight the further you go down this list. So the first one on that list is physical trace evidence, photos and video data, and confirmed government documents. That kind of what you might call tangible data. That's number 1. Number 2 would be testimony of witnesses and experiencers, people who've been abducted, people who've had contact of some sort, that sort of thing. That's the second category. The third category would be rumors, leaks, conspiracies, and lore. That would also include disinformation, which disinformation is not necessarily wrong information or invalid information. Disinformation can be true, but it's given out in a way that makes it look like it's ridiculous, or in some way actually discredits itself by virtue of the way it's presented. And of course the whole point of disinformation is to get people to look at the whole thing with disdain and turn around and walk away. Finally, the 4th category is esoteric, channeled, or psychically accessed information. What some people call remote viewing might fall into that category, or what people call accessing the Akashic record. I don't know if you're familiar with Edgar Cayce and the people that have researched his stuff, but that was what he claimed to be doing, was accessing information from the Akashic record. So I give that one the least weight, that 4th category, the psychic stuff. And the actual physical evidence, I give that the most weight. And so it just kind of, goes progressively down from number 1 to number 4. When I look at reptoid data, I find very little, unfortunately, under category 1, but I find a lot under all 3 of the other categories, 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot in category 3, the rumors, leaks, conspiracies, and lore category. And there's a certain amount of testimony, too, that's involved, so that's number 2. But there's just, as far as physical trace evidence is concerned, in my own research, I haven't found much, if any, in that category. I would be very interested if someone else does know of any kind of physical trace or even like confirmed government documents or photos or video data that would actually directly relate to the reptoid phenomenon, because I'd be very interested in.
Well, Bill, I have a quick question actually on the same situation. Yeah. I was actually talking back and forth with the owner or maker of Reptoids.com. His name's John Rhodes. Mm-hmm. Would you be interested in doing a follow-up show maybe, where we could have a debate with you and him both at the same time, like in the future?
Yeah, that'd be fine. That give me some more time to
question.
research too, some about this case and other cases of similar nature.
Well, yeah, Nick, didn't you have a question you were asking, Nick? I interrupted you a minute ago.
Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to ask Bill, are you familiar with any of the theories that pertain to the reptoids possibly having evolved in Antarctica?
Oh, no, I haven't heard that one. Antarctica, wow. I really haven't heard that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's it's a very hard subject to research because there is very little information really out there. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like I said before, there's a lot of rumors and lore, and sometimes it's hard to sift through all that, and because my approach is that I take a skeptical approach. I'm not so skeptical as to just throw stuff away, but I am skeptical enough that, I'm open-minded, but I'm not open-minded enough for my brains to fall out of my ears, as the old saying goes, So I do take a skeptical approach, a healthy dose of it, but I'm not like those who just debunk offhand without researching. I research it, and that's what's important is that, because when you do research it and you really look at it, then you find that while there's a lot of stuff out there that's probably bogus, mixed together with the stuff that seems to be probably real. I kind of equate it to a marble cake. You familiar with that kind of cake?
Yeah.
You've got the chocolate and vanilla parts mixed together and all marbleized. It's just like that. Truth and falsehood are mixed together in that same way. And sometimes you can separate a little piece of that chocolate out of the marble cake, or separate a little piece of that vanilla part, But then there's other parts that are so mixed together you can't possibly separate them. And so I think that's the case with this legends and lores and the mythology, that's just built up over all of this stuff. It's just like that. It's all mixed together so much that it's not easy to separate it sometimes. And there's some stuff that, it's like, well, there might be something to that, but, there's not enough evidence for me to be able to draw a conclusion,
Well, a good question that was coming in actually on our AOL chat room, they were asking us, have you heard of the Bishop Bill Lizardman cases?
The Bishop what?
The Bishop Bill Lizardman. It's like a cryptid monster type thing.
That's another one I haven't heard about. Wow.
Well, what it is there's a creature over in Bishopville, South Carolina, and it's been seen since the 80s and a little bit sooner than that probably. But anyways, it's a creature that resembles a reptoid. It walks on two legs. It has scales all over it, claws, like all that sort of thing. And I guess it's most famous for being attacking cars. It's attacked at least two cars that I know of. I know there was a documentary on it also on Monster Quest, and there's police reports, and the Men in Black were coming out and everything. I guess the reptoids, they even said that it also has a tail at sometimes, like some people report. But the Reptoids.com even has reports of it, and they even have 5 different stories on there of this creature. And they have maps of where it's seen and everything. I wasn't sure if you've heard about that. But,
no, not specifically.
It's along a swamp is where it's often seen too.
The swamp. Yeah.
Like a swamp that's nearby.
So that seems to be more of a creature than an actual being. Is that your gist from those testimonies? Or does it exhibit intelligent behavior?
Yeah, actually, whatever it is, it's, let me think. Nick, do you know about the Bishop of the Lizardman, right, Nick?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, could you explain to Bill a little bit about, like behavior or certain things that it does that like intelligent-wise?
Well, what I'm familiar, it's been a while since I've read up on this phenomenon, but one case I remember, wasn't somebody driving down the road, and didn't this lizard man, whatever you want to call it, came out and approached the car? Am I correct on that detail, Jer?
Well, it's attacked two parked cars, and it's jumped on the hood of two other cars. That's what I think you're talking about. One of those.
Yeah. And it's definitely, to me, a physical creature, some type of, if something's there, it's, it's not something that's very esoteric or mystical. It's a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
If the phenomenon's real, or maybe, it could be people could mistake some type of animal that already exists for that. I'm not sure. There's a really large number of different explanations that can be pursued.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of possibilities. But one thing that I think we need to put into perspective is that we really don't know everything that exists on this planet yet. We've certainly learned a lot of it, but I find it interesting to note that in 2008, I believe it was, in the Congo, that it was discovered in a certain part of that jungle, a population of 100,000 gorillas that had previously not been known to be there, all the way up until 2008. Up until then, except maybe some local natives who, it was not officially known that particular bunch of gorillas were even there. So it is arrogant for us to presume that we know where every living thing is on this planet and all the different creatures that inhabit this planet. People have used that argument about Bigfoot. So, well, Bigfoot couldn't be in these areas that they say that it is without people knowing already. Well, those gorillas lived there for, an awful long time until 2008. Nobody knew they were there. And that's a population of 100,000, so if an animal that we know exists, in other parts of the world, if it can exist in a certain place and then nobody knows about it until then there could be large populations of various creatures living in a lot of different places that we don't know about officially. So,
yeah,
that just makes it.
Well, actually, one of our other team members on the line, he actually has a question for you, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, this is Brent. Yeah, and I was wondering about reptoid alien abductions. Do you know anything about that?
Well, certainly a lot of people have testified to that occurring with them, and there's a lot of folks out there who think that, like with the gray aliens, that these reptoids have a hybrid project of some sort. Again, the weight of that data is not real heavy. It's out there, there's a lot of testimony about it, but again, we don't have anything definitive. But some people would think that, or would argue that there's probably some more definitive than others, and I'd need to do a lot more research on it myself to be able to draw anything heavier in terms of a conclusion on that. But at this point, it's still falls into the kind of a crossover between the testimonies category and the rumors category.
All right.
Okay.
So, Bill, I also had a question that's coming in. Would you say that the reptoids, how long do you think that it would take for them to transform if they're dinosaurs? How long over evolution do you think it would take them to come from like their original form into like a human form?
Okay, well that's good. That's a fair question, Matt. Let's look at it from the point of view of our own evolution. 65 million years ago, there appears to have been some sort of catastrophic event. There's still debate about what that was. A lot of folks have, accepted the theory of an asteroid collision with the Earth, wiping out the dinosaurs. But it's still, we're not real 100% certain that that's how it happened. But something happened, something really catastrophic, and it certainly did seem to change the environment of the Earth, and the warm-blooded mammals were the ones who survived primarily, and the others didn't do so well. Now, at that point in time, 65 million years ago, what we consider to be our ancestors was kind of like a little mouse-like creature, maybe possum-like kind of creature. So in 65 million years, that creature evolved into us. It took 65 million years for it to go from that kind of little rat-like critter to our form. Of course, that same rat critter, a lot of other things came out of it too, you know, all the apes as well, and all the primates, and a variety of other creatures. But the point is, that took 65 million years. So, but now look at how long the dinosaurs existed on this planet. We find fossil evidence going back 250 million years ago of the earliest dinosaur forms. Those dinosaurs mostly died out in earlier catastrophic events. There was at least 4 major extinction events during that period between 250 million years ago and the current day. And so during those different times when something happened and a lot of life died out, but what little lived survived, then rose back up. But the point is that from 250 million years ago to 65 million years ago, that's a span of almost 200 million years, just a little less than that. And it's my belief that, you know, those dinosaurs had plenty of time. You know, if it only took 65 million years for us to evolve from a rat-like form, then during that nearly 200 million years, there could have been several dinosaur-like forms that evolved into intelligence. And intelligence then, 65 million years ago, and if they were intelligent then, and they've had another 65 million years to further evolve, then they well could have evolved into multiple forms too. Like I said, that rat-like creature, it's not just us that came from that. You know, a lot of mammals, a lot of different mammal creatures evolved from that rat-like creature, or that kind of mole-like critter that we evolved from. So those dinosaurs, if they had already achieved intelligence at that time, a long time ago, millions of years ago, then they certainly could be quite diverse today and have many different forms. And there could have been multiples then. There's a lot of candidates. When you look through these books, and I've done a lot of looking at these different dinosaur species, there's a whole class of creatures that are the mimus, various mimus species, Gallimimus being one of them, Struthiomimus, and various other mimoid types. They all could very easily evolve into something. In fact, there is one theory that's in fact the mimoids are the ancestors of the greys, while the raptor-like or velociraptor type, or there's another dinosaur called the Deinonychus, which is very similar to the velociraptor, that could have been the form that the so-called reptoids evolved from. So these could have been lived on the Earth at the same time. Very different in nature as well. The mimoids are herbivores, while the Deinonychus and raptor types are carnivores. So their natures would be very different, you know, in terms of what they like to eat, and in terms of their aggressiveness as well.
Well, a couple questions that are coming in. The reptoids. So, like you were saying, if they got like a couple million years start on us, do you think that there could be a possibility that they could have left this planet and they could have came back, and that's what we're seeing?
Well, I think that's highly probable. Within the lore, there are some who believe that both occurred, that some of them went underground while others left the planet. And so we have two groups that are really going to be quite different from each other. You know, those that left are going to have evolved rather differently than those who stayed behind and lived in caverns. And there are some big caverns in this planet. I don't personally believe the hollow Earth theory in the sense of the Earth being completely hollow with a little mini star on the inside at the core, and that this inner surface of continents and stuff like that. I don't particularly buy that theory, but I do believe that there are some very large caverns, some of them enormous caverns that whole cities could exist within quite easily, and nobody on the surface would even know they were down there, and it could well be that there could be multiple groups, multiple types. You know, in one area there might be one kind, in another area some other kind, and so forth, of inner Earth civilizations, I guess you might call them. I mean, we could actually do a topic on that sometime. There'd be plenty of stuff to talk about with inner Earth civilization. I've got a friend who has done some research on that. He's a little reclusive himself. He's not one like me to want to talk on the radio like this, but he has done some research into the inner Earth civilizations, and he's kind of composed a list that he feels like could be down there. And I've always found the topic kind of interesting, but I guess I just haven't put as much into researching that as he has. But you know, I'd be glad to share his research too, because he and I talk a lot.
I said maybe he could go on the show when we do our special. Like I was going to try to set that up where we could get the guy that I was connecting with from Reptoids.com. That would be interesting.
I'll talk to him about it, but don't. Like I say, this guy's kind of reclusive, so don't count on that one. But I'll talk to him about it.
Something that you covered on our last show that people are asking us. Could you explain a little bit about where some of these deep underground caverns are, or like parts of the world that where they could possibly have them still living today?
Well, let's see. For instance, in Turkey, there is a place that is known where a human civilization lived underground. I always have difficulty pronouncing the name of that area, but is it Cappadocia? I can't do it. I'd have to look it up again. But certainly that area has a lot of caverns in the mountainous regions there. There's great potential in mountainous areas. Even under the mountains of Ararat, I think in Europe, the Carpathians are a good candidate for areas where there could be some really large caverns. Even here in America, people have talked a lot about areas over in Arizona, some caverns there. There's a lot of lore about a human type of underground civilization in that area of the world. I forget the name of the mountain there specifically, that there's supposed to be a city, I think they call it Shambhala, but that city, again, that's human, not reptoid. But I'm not sure where else specifically, but a good place to look is in mountain ranges, particularly the older mountain ranges. The younger ones, not so much. Like, for instance, I wouldn't think the Andes would have very much. There could be something there, but it would be much more recent because the Andes is a pretty young mountain range compared to, like, say, the Rockies or, well, the Himalayas are a little older than that, but still relatively young. But like I say, the mountains over in Europe, the Carpathians in particular, those would be, I think, a really good candidate because that's some really old mountains there. The older the better. That's the really key is looking at, if you know your geology and you find your older mountain ranges, those are going to be your best candidates.
Yeah, well, Bill, one of my team members on the line had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Brent?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Do you think they're dangerous, or what would happen if we made public contact with them? What do you think would happen?
Well, I think I think that with any, just like us, with any race of beings, you're going to have both your goods and your bads. I mean, even though it's a work of fiction, and frankly, I think it's very fictional. That series V, even that shows us that concept. That they're with. I'm sure you guys have y'all been watching the new V series. That in that series, they depict these aliens. They're reptilian as well, type of nature, but some of them are good, and most of them are bad. I think we're going to find that to be the case with just about any race of beings. But it does appear that the reptoid agenda is not especially good for us. So I think that many of them may well consider us kind of like an enemy species, and that may well be instinctual, and not so much anything like inherent evil, but more like
like a subspecies, I think.
Yeah, a species thing. Yeah, it's definitely, I think that, because in a very real sense, we are competing with them, or they consider us in a competitive way, and so in that sense, at this point, it doesn't look good for diplomatic relations to work out with them. But who knows? Stranger things have been known to happen, I suppose.
Well, Bill, in our chat room, somebody was wanting me to bring up the Appalachian Mountains, and said because those are old, and they were wondering that if there could be any reptoid sort of activity going on there.
That's a possibility. I don't know of any specific cases, but I don't know. This Bishopville, North Carolina that you mentioned about, I don't know how close that is to those mountains, but that's probably not real close. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely something going on there in the Appalachians. There are some definite underground activities. Some parts of that area it's highly there's some lore that our own government is involved in creating underground facilities. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hum. It's I can't remember. There's a certain mountain in the Appalachians where the people near there keep hearing this hum. And there's other parts of the world too where people have this problem where they can't seem to. It just doesn't stop. It's just this constant sub-vocal kind of sound. It's a very just continuous humming sound that seems to really bother folks. And there's some speculation that may well be some sort of deep underground boring device that our government is using to bore out big chambers, and it creates this resonance that some people can hear, like people who have a wider range to their hearing, kind of like the way dogs can hear things we can't hear, that some people can hear this and other people can't. That is in the Appalachians where that phenomenon is occurring rather strongly. So that's a possibility that there could be some stuff going on, Black Project stuff going on, but there could also be some chambers that have been occupied for a long time by others, like these reptilians and other types. So that's a good candidate. The Appalachians that would be a good place if someone wants to research that. I would encourage them to look into that deeper and see what they can find. It's the only way you're going to find stuff is you look for it.
A question that I was personally wondering was, do you study other types of alien activity too, or other types of like the Greys or anything like that, or mostly just reptoids?
Yeah, really, I'd say that I've researched throughout. Across, like I was telling you earlier, I take a generalist approach. I try to kind of gather a lot of data from a lot of different sources. So yeah, I've researched some Grey stuff, and the other night, or a couple of weeks ago, you guys had those people that were talking about that case of the aliens with the really big ears that attacked that farm.
Oh, you mean the Sutton Farm?
Yeah, the Sutton Farm case. I was wishing that I listened to that one in the archives, and while I was listening to it, I was wishing that I had listened to it live, because there were some thoughts I had on it at the time. Of course, since then, I've forgotten what it was I had thought about it, yeah, this reclusive friend I was telling you about earlier, he and I have studied some stuff about that together, and we have some theories about those guys, but I think that so far I haven't heard of any other case history with an alien is described like those particular guys. So that may well have been a kind of an isolated incident of a group that were just kind of checking out the place, and maybe they haven't been hanging around. I think some of the other ones have been hanging around a lot longer. The Greys, frankly, I believe they've been here a very long time, a lot longer than the present day researchers, looking at 47 on. That's one of the things I always find kind of interesting when people talk about how in 1947 seems to be the beginning year of UFO phenomenon, and it's really not. I mean, you can find evidence that stretches back a lot further back than that. But 1947 does seem to be a year when a lot of stuff was happening. A lot of UFOs were being sighted, and in the regions of where things like nuclear research is going on. And some people have said, well, when we set off the bombs in 1945, we got their attention, and so that's why we started having more UFO sightings. But while that's an interesting connection, based on how far away other stars are, 2 years seems an awful short time for that attention to suddenly to flare up from 45 till 47. So my thinking is these people were already here. They already had underwater bases, and when we started putting off these bombs like this, they got worried, and so they started checking it out. And that makes a lot more sense that they were already here for them to respond so quickly, rather than having to come from another star system.
Well, Bill, I don't want to cut you off, but we have about 2 minutes remaining in the show.
Okay.
And I just want to give you like another chance to maybe say any URLs or just any last things you want to say in the last couple of minutes of the show. The good time would be to say it now.
Well, that URL that I sent earlier, I'll send that one again to the chat room. Oh, shoot. That's going to be your best place to go to find other things I've written. That's http://Fortean Enigmas. That's FORTEANEnigmas.gather.com. And there's a little backward slash after that. Like I say, I sent that link to the chat room, and going there, you'll be able to find that article I've written that has a list of all of my articles on UFOs and extraterrestrials and all my art that I have out there. I'm going to be updating that particular document soon, and once I get these other 2 articles finished, so keep checking back to it, and when you see the new articles, then go check them out too. One on the Reptoids, and there'll be one on the Fermi paradox, like I was telling you earlier. So and I already have one article about the Fermi paradox. It is on that list, but I'll be kind of looking at it from a different angle for this other article.
Well, we're also going to have Stan Friedman on the show tomorrow. I was going to say if you wanted to ask Stanton a question about anything, since I know you're into the UFOs and all that.
Yeah, I'll be glad to come along during that one, because I actually met Stanton last year in March at a convention here locally in Memphis, and great guy. I have a lot of respect for him. He takes a very scientific approach to his research, and I really respect that. So yeah, I'll definitely be listening tomorrow, and I'll perk up if you like and ask him a question or two.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks again, Bill. We'll have to have you on again tomorrow. We'll have you ask Stanton some questions and things like that.
Alrighty.